Creating the illusion of image inside of text is really easy in Photoshop using clipping masks. My name is Daniel Sorensen, and in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how these two images were created. First, we'll create this image. Let's get started by creating a new document. I'm going to make mine in inches, 8.5 by 6.5 at 150 ppi RGB. And then I'll take my type tool and I'm going to set my type, and I'm going to go with Arial Black. I'll make it much larger. If you need help with using type in Photoshop, please refer to my tutorial, Introduction to Typography in Photoshop. Now I'm going to add a black layer, just a black solid color behind this. And maybe I'll change my type to white so I can see it. And now I'm going to bring in my image. So I've already opened up my image, just called Lightshow 2. There's a link in the description where you can download this image if you like. And I'm just going to take my Move tool, click and drag up into my new document. And if you hold the Shift key, it'll center it. And now all you have to do is create the clipping mask. As with most things in Photoshop, there are at least 3 ways to accomplish the same thing. You can create a clipping mask by using the drop-down menu in the Layers panel and coming down to Create Clipping Mask. And here is the key command. Or you can go up here to the top menu to Layer and Create Clipping Mask. Or my favorite is to hold down the Option key or the Alt on a PC and click just between the 2 layers, and that will create the clipping mask. Now our type is a little bit hard to read because of the high contrast of the image we've placed. So I'm going to add a little bit of a glow to the outside of the type just so that it stands out. To do that, I'm going down here where it says FX, and this is where you add layer styles. So I'll click here and go down to Outer Glow. So mine's already set up for a light blue. You can change the color by clicking on the color swatch and choosing a new color if you wish. And by default, a light color is set to screen. If this was going to be a dark glow, you could change this to multiply or one of the other blending modes in this category. But I'm going to leave it on screen. You can adjust the size here. I'm going to keep it fairly tight. Now I could have just done a stroke, but I like the soft edge of this because it makes it feel a little bit more like it's illuminated. So I'm going to go ahead and go with that. And there we go. Now if you wanted to, you could click on the image layer and move it around. You could change its opacity or its blending mode if you wish. Okay, now this one's a little bit more complicated, but it basically follows the same principles. Let's start by creating a new document. I am going to choose film and video because this is supposed to be a title treatment. So the film and video preset of 1920 by 1080, the HD TV, that'll be 72 ppi. And I'm actually going to use a black background. So I'll click here and make it black and say create. Now we need to bring in our man. So click on my man image. This image comes from Pexels.com, and I've provided a link to their website where you can download this image for free. I'm going to use my Move tool and click in the middle of the image, drag up to the Untitled tab, and drag back down into my composition window. I'm going to bring out my Layers panel so I can see what's going on a little bit better. I know I'm going to want to scale this guy up quite a bit, so Command T, and up here in the Options bar, I'm going to make the width 135. Make sure that link is checked, and that'll make the height 135 as well. Now we're going to need to reposition this image once we get our type in here. Okay, so I'm going to hit return to form that transformation. I am going to lower the opacity of this image. We also need to get rid of this edge in the background here. So I'm going to add a layer mask. Then I'm going to use the gradient tool. I'm going to select from basics foreground to transparent, and make sure my foreground color is black. Working on the layer mask, I'll just click and drag. You could hold the Shift key to keep it straight, maybe come up from the corners here a little bit, and on this side the same deal. Make sure you start inside this image to make sure we get rid of that hard edge. Now I do want to lower the opacity to about 70%, and I'm going to add a hue saturation adjustment layer. I'm going to hold down the Option key as I do that, so that when this dialog box comes up, I can check this box, which is Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask. And then I'm going to say OK. Now I want this to colorize the image, so I'm going to check the box here for Colorize. And for the hue, I'm going to change this to 233, and I'm going to leave the saturation at 25 and the lightness at 0. Now I could have not used the clipping mask in this case, and it wouldn't make a heck of a lot of difference, but because this layer has been reduced to 70, it does go a little bit darker if I release the clipping mask, and I kind of like the lighter effect. So I'm going to keep it with a clipping mask, which will make this slightly more contrasty and more visible. Okay, now I'm going to set my type. So I'm going to select my horizontal type tool, type in all caps Hunted. That'll be the title of the show. Now I want this to go as large as possible, but since this is for on air, let's say it's for television, I'm going to show my guides, Command semicolon, and because we chose the preset for film and video, this will give us our action and our title safe guidelines. So the innermost is our title safe. That's what I want to reference as I scale this up. I want to be inside title. So I'm going to make it something like this and move it up towards the center. This outer one would be for action. Now if this was for web, this would not be nearly as important. You can make your type even bigger than this. But I'm going to hit return to perform that transformation. I am going to move my image now, so I want his eyeball to be right here in the N, somewhere about there. So now I'm going to duplicate that layer, Command J. If nothing is selected, Command J will duplicate the layer, and I'm going to drag one of them up above my type and then create a clipping mask. So I'm going to hold down the Option or the Alt on PC and click right between the layers, and that will create the clipping mask. I'm going to press Command semicolon to hide my guides. All right, now to make the type more legible, I'm going to add a few layer styles. So I'm going down here where it says FX, and I'm going to start with the drop shadow. And the drop shadow initially, I'm going to go with black on multiply, and this is just to help separate the type from the background image. Now I can add an additional drop shadow by clicking the plus sign. And then this top one, I will change this to white or maybe to a slight bluish color to kind of go with the look of the background. So make it slightly blue maybe, and change the blending mode here to either normal or to screen. I think this one I'll put on screen. And I want the distance actually to be 0 because I want this to act kind of as a soft keyline or a stroke. So make it 0 so that it's centered, and then make the size slightly larger and the spread a little bit bigger. That'll make it a little bit harder. So something like this, kind of like that. Now I'm going to duplicate this one just by hitting the plus sign and maybe put this one on normal. Maybe I'll give this a slightly more blue tint to it, say like that. Maybe reduce the opacity just a little. So you can play with this to get it the way you like it. But that certainly makes the type much more legible. Now I want the eye to pop out and to be in front of this type so we can clearly focus on that eye, if you will. So I'm going to duplicate man, and by the way, this layer should now be cranked up to 100%. We had it on 70 for the background, and now I want it to be on 100% when it appears in the type. I'm going to duplicate it by pressing Command J, and I'm going to fill the layer mask with black and then reveal it using a brush and white paint, soft, small brush. I'm going to change the flow to about 60% and uncheck Enable Airbrush Effect. And now I'm just going to click in here and kind of reveal it like that. I still want to be able to read the type, but I want that eye to really pop out. To make it pop out even more, I'm going to add an adjustment layer of levels, use the previous layer as a clipping mask, and then I'm going to increase the highlights so that that really pops out. Something like that. I might want to go in and paint out this background a little bit more or increase the contrast. All right, so now I do want this one to be a clipping mask. I see that it is not at the moment, so I want that to be a clipping mask. And I want to add levels to increase the contrast and hopefully get rid of some of the background there. There we go, something like that. And that's all there is to it. Now, if you like this tutorial, please click like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.